Welcome back. Brand South Africa this week launched its 20 Years of Freedom campaign in Johannesburg. It's also launched Play Your Part, a local campaign encouraging South Africans to contribute towards a better nation. Well, to find out more, we're now joined by Brand South Africa researcher Petrus de Kock. Thank you for joining us. Petrus, so this ad campaign, already running on radio, about to launch on television, and I understand it took months, 6 months to conceptualize. Tell me about the thinking behind it.
Yes, thank you for inviting us. Now, the thinking behind the 20 Years of Democracy or Freedom campaign is quite a big project in total. So this week what we did is to launch a special television advertisement that will go live on Saturday on the SABC, ENCA and several other channels. It's both domestic as well as international. And it's just to mark the moment. Sunday is 20 years officially, kind of, in a way, it's happy birthday to the democracy of South Africa. And I think it's a moment for us to reflect, on advances made, remaining challenges, and I think an honest look also, if you look at some of the initiatives like the Presidency's 20-year review report, if you look at several other private initiatives also, kind of looking in a very hard and cold way in numbers, in a whole range of other things of what has happened in 20 years. And if you think on the kind of system that emerges into the country in 1994 from where we come, a system that was geared for only a few million of its residents, basically, and having to transform that and at the same time manage a major transition. So it's a moment of reflecting on that. So the advertisement is just to mark the moment, but then in relation to that is a whole lot of other activities as well.
It starts with long queues that we saw in 1994 as people got that vote. Is there any danger it could be lost because we're about to enter into elections now, or possibly be seen as a plug for the ruling party if it's glowing?
No, not at all. I think if you look at our mandate as Brand South Africa, our mandate is very much, if you look at the nation brand is a construct of 52 million people, a GDP valued at about $350 billion US per year, and a major international profile in international governance. We currently chair the African Union Commission, so South Africa plays quite a significant role in several areas. So the advertisement also tells the story of a country that's growing, a society that's evolving. I think people who see the ad will ultimately see it's also presented in an interesting way that it's a country in construction, it's a country in the making in a way, and there's human activity in that construction. So I think it's a very unique story that we have to tell as a country. So and the brand story is ultimately the story of us as South Africans.
It's interesting to me because we have achieved a lot, but it seems like since Nelson Mandela died, there's been a lot of soul searching, and some people looking at what we may have even lost already. So how do you counter that mood that I think is really there?
I think in our national identity as a country, there's something very unique in that. If I think of how we made the transition, how we created a constitution, a very strong and a lot of strong institutions to protect that institution, I think as a nation, 20 years into democracy, we're also entering a new phase. And I think we must be realistic about it. We lost one of our greatest leaders just a few months ago. And I think the 20 years campaign is also remembering that legacy, and the importance of that, and kind of how do we keep that alive and how do we reinvent that? Because I think that's in the creative spirit of being South African. I think the creative spirit of being South African is constantly challenging each other, and growing through that, to something new.
Petrus, just have a look at the screen. We've brought up 20 years of economic growth, and this is something that you are looking at, the dividend of democracy, and it's steady growth, but Is this real achievement if we look at our growth levels now? Because you are looking way beyond campaigns and at the whole competitiveness of the country. But our growth is dwindling. It's dismal compared to other BRICS countries. Growth has come, but so has inequality. Huge amounts of unemployed, and that's a structural problem that doesn't seem to want to go away.
As Brand South Africa, we are quite careful in looking at international environments, and understanding that, because our work is both domestic as well as international. So our international work is about positioning South Africa. In order to position the country, we need to know what's happening in regions and markets. So the picture of GDP growth of South Africa is also, I think, reflective of, especially in the last few years, of what's been happening in the international markets. As you know, the Eurozone, for example, is possibly going into a phase of quantitative easing. Now, why do I raise that? I raise that because our GDP growth and our economy is quite exposed to international patterns. So there's a lot of national issues that we can definitely address, and that's something we created through our platform called the South African Competitiveness Forum that we launched last year. As a brand agency, we need to understand where are we competitive and strong, where's our reputation strong, where do we have challenges, because that informs us in how we do the work. So the GDP figure is to be a combination of domestic and international issues. So what I need to, what we need to understand then is that in creating the story of the brand and selling the brand, we have a major challenge. When you look at that picture of growth, not only of low growth in South Africa, but also in emerging markets, in the past year. But however, the dynamism in the global economy still remains in the emerging markets. And that's a well-established fact. So what I'm trying to say through that is that, yes, I think we have to be concerned as a country about those kind of things, but also we must be very realistic. So the achievement, for example, of the last 20 years is more than 10 million people moving significantly up the LSM scale. And that's being recognized by Goldman Sachs, by Stats SA, by a whole lot of other figures that one can draw on. So in terms of people getting homes, for example, just making that move of people, in the society, getting access to basic services, that is where you create the foundation for further growth. And that's where the National Development Plan comes in, for example.
All right, so I guess it's from where we've come from, what we've done and what we can still do, and we will watch out for that campaign that launches on television this week, and then of course Play Your Part as well, also coming up. That was a research manager at Brand SA, Dr. Petrus de Kock.